All right, so in this week's guitar lesson, we're going back to the blues, and this is a slow blues. This is my favorite stuff to play over. And the whole point of this lesson is to give you ideas that you can incorporate into your playing. So we're going to be talking about some blues chord ideas that you might not have thought about, or maybe you've heard them and you didn't know how to do them. So I'm going to show you how to play everything that I played in the intro there. And really that entire lead was played with chords. It was just a, is it a lead? Is it a rhythm? It's somewhere in between. There was some single string stuff, but most of that, like 95% of it, was just chords. So we're going to talk about all of that. We're going to break down the entire thing in this video. If you'd like to get the extra materials that come with this week's lesson, so the MP3 jam tracks, the tab PDF file, the on-screen tab viewer, which has the tab and the video on the screen at the same time. It's interactive. You can slow it down, all that stuff. You can get those extras by going to activemelody.com, go to the weekly lessons page, and do a search for EP591. Okay, so we have a blues that's got a lot of influence, actually. So there are several players that play in this style, and there's three in particular. One is Duke Robillard. So there's stuff that he does that I always love, and so I'm always borrowing ideas. T-Bone Walker is another big one, and so we'll talk. Actually, this whole intro is a T-Bone Walker thing, and then there's a little bit of Stevie Ray Vaughan, which I usually don't do because I can't do that stuff. But there's some stuff in here that we're going to talk about that I've heard Stevie do. So the song is played in the key of A, and it's just a 1-4-5. So the chord progressions, you have an A for the 1 chord, a D for the 4 chord, and an E for the 5 chord. And it starts off with a T-Bone Walker style intro. And I'm going to go ahead and play this. Let me play it for you, and then I'll talk about what's going on. All right, so it starts off with that little walk down. Now, I've heard T-Bone Walker do that. If you listen to Mean Old World, that's one of his songs. Another example would be How Long. I think it's called How Long Blues. You can find those on YouTube or Spotify or whatever. But you'll hear T-Bone doing this same kind of little intro. Now, when he does it, he goes through the cycle 2 times. And I didn't want to steal exactly what he's doing, so I kind of just went through it once. But it's the same idea of what he's doing. And so and so the song is in the key of A, remember that, and I start off with this A chord up here, but it's an A9. So let me just show you what I'm doing, because it's the same thing each time. We're just sliding down a few frets each time. But anyway, so if I look at strings 5, 4, and 3, I have this little shape. It looks like a little triangle shape there. And that's my middle finger on the 12th fret 5th string, 11th fret 4th string, and then the 12th fret 3rd string with my ring finger. And you can see that shape is the same shape as your D7 shape that you learn in first position. But if you play it here, that's an A note, and so you're playing, that's actually an A7 until we add these extra notes here. So if you bar, and I'm using my ring finger for that, so on this 12th fret, if I'm barring and playing strings 1, 2, and 3, like that, now I'm playing an A9. And so this allows me, because my pinky's free, I can go like this. And so if I come up here and hit that, I'm actually playing like I guess that would be like an A13 for that moment there, for that. But that's just a really cool little jazzy sound. And the way that you can kind of connect it to something is just think of your root note on the 5th string. So that's the note that defines that chord. So here's my A chord using the A shape. Here's that A7. And then here's that A9. And then there's the A13. So always connect it back to something that is familiar so that you can reuse this in the future. So it starts off with, so notice I came up and hit that 14th fret, 1st string, and then I strummed it, and then I went like this. So I came down 2 frets, took the same shape and went down 2 frets. That would be like a G9. But when I played it, I slid into that G note like this. Then strum the chord again. Now we come down 2 more frets. Now we're going to be doing an F. And then the last time, we just go down 1 fret, and that's the E That's the E9, which is our 5 chord. That sets us up to get into the song, which is in the key of A. Kind of a cool little intro, but if you listen to those songs I recommended, you'll hear T-Bone doing the same kind of thing. He does it on a lot of his stuff. I've also heard Duke Robillard do that in some of his stuff too, probably just influence from T-Bone. Who knows where T-Bone got it. But anyway, that's the idea there, is that walk down. Now, if that's too hard for you to do that, I know some of you are going to be complaining because that's too difficult. You could just bypass that 5th string and just play it like this. Strings, so you do the bar with your ring finger and then just put your index finger on that 4th string like this. You can do it that way if that's easier. Sometimes when I'm playing that style, I do it that way. All right, so we made it down to that E9, and then watch this. Right into the 1 chord, which is our A. So that's your 5 chord, and then we go into the A. Now, the way that I'm playing this, we start a half step up. This is definitely a T-Bone Walker thing. Stormy Monday. When you hear that chord, what you're hearing, there's 2 ways that this is described. Sometimes people call it a minor 7 flat 5, which it is. So this would be like a C sharp minor 7 flat 5. But why would you say C sharp when we're playing in the key of A? I can't connect it. So the way that I think of this is an A9 chord because I'm playing it over the 1 chord, which is an A, right? So it's an A9 chord with a C sharp in the bass. A C sharp is in your A chord anyway. It's actually the 3rd interval, but I'm just putting it in the bass. And so that's how I think of it. It's an A9 over C sharp. But what's cool about this chord is it's a slidable chord. So I can start a half step up and slide into that. You hear that all the time in the blues. You hear songs end like that. You also hear songs begin like we're doing here. And then you can also go down a half step below it and slide up into it. So there's all kinds of cool stuff you can do with this little chord voicing. Now here's how I connect it back to something that I know. I think, so remember that represents my A chord, right? Well, here's my A chord using the E shape, right? If I were to play that here, I'm barring when I do that, I'm barring on that 5th fret. So that 5th fret kind of becomes like a little mental anchor for me, or visual anchor, I should say. And then that's where I put my pinky and my ring finger when I'm making the chord. I know that's kind of a clunky way of describing it. That's just when I first figured out that chord, that's what how I related it. So that's, in my mind, that's just where I go. You can find something else if that's easier for you. You might think of the G shape, for example, and just think it's something that lives in there. I mean, however you want to do it. But anyway, that's the 1st chord there, that A. Okay, so now there's a little bit of a lead part here. This is the only place where I played any kind of single string lead. And I started with, right? And that walks us to the 4 chord. But this first lick is just minor pentatonic scale, pattern 1. Right? My A minor pentatonic scale. All right, so to go through this little lead here, which has kind of 3 sections, this is the first. I'm just going to put the tab up on the screen. You can pause the video. I'm going to play through it slowly so you can watch me do that. Now, if you're a premium member, you have access to the on-screen tab viewer, which has me playing it with the tab on the screen, and you can slow it down and all that. But just for brevity, I'm going to try and do that here. So here it is slowly. Notice that little chromatic walk down at the end. So 7, 6, 5, and then I come down to the 4th fret, and watch this. Now what just happened there? That's where we go to the 4 chord, and so I'm playing my D. How is that a D? That's a D9. We just did that in the intro, remember? Remember that little 9 thing we were doing? Instead of me doing the full chord like this with the D note down in the bass, I just played it like this, so there's really no root on it. But that's a D9. So I just walked down from that lead and played the chord. I thought that was kind of a cool voicing. Okay, so here's the next lead. We're still in minor pentatonic scale pattern 1, but there's a few major pentatonic scale notes in there. This note, which is your 6th interval, that's in there. All right, so let me play through that slowly. We'll put the tab up on the screen. You can pause the video. Here's what it looks like. Right, and you can see all those notes are minor pentatonic scale pattern 1 with the exception of that note. And that's another T-Bone Walker kind of thing. He used this note and this note in his minor pentatonic scale pattern 1 all the time. So when you hear those T-Bone Walker licks, those that major sound, you know, that's kind of what he's doing. This was his area that he played in a lot. Now here's this last lick. It's also minor pentatonic scale pattern 1, classic blues. It lands on that flat 7. I love the sound of that. All right, so this next lick is a Stevie Ray Vaughan lick. It's also a Jimmy Vaughan lick. Stevie probably got it from Jimmy, and who knows where he got it. But anyway, here's the lick, and it's really an A diminished 7 chord. But I'm just playing the top 3 strings. You know, it's that same little triad, just like the D7 shape in first position. If you slide it all the way up here and play it here, so that my index finger is on the 7th fret, 2nd string. That's the note. And then I do a little bend. I'm actually bending the entire chord like this. All 3 strings. If you can't do that, just try and bend that 3rd string. I played it 5 times like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, stop. And then we're gonna walk up to the 4 chord. Now this is a really cool move. Stop. So that's the timing of that. Now what is that crazy walk up? But that's one of those licks you've heard a lot of times, and it sounds great when you hear the whole band doing it, the drum, you know, following along. But what I'm playing there is what we've already done. So that's that same, that 9 chord. Remember I said this was an A9 with a C sharp in the bass, that first chord. So I just started with that, and watch this. I walked it all the way up to here, and when I came up to here, I'm playing a D, right? So that's a D, which is my 4 chord. That's a D9 with an F sharp in the bass. But it's that same chord. So if you walk that 1 chord up 5 times, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, now you're playing the 4 chord. And you can do that with any chord. You can do it with a major chord. So if I was playing like an A major, I could go. There's my 4 chord. So you could do it with any variation of it. Now, hopefully a light bulb's going off and you go, oh, okay, that's a cool little transition to get from the 1 to the 4. Just chromatically. Now from there I went. Now this is the same chord here for all of this, but it's the 6 to the 9 chord. How many times have I used this, right? It's in everything. It's perfect for blues, country. It's such a cool thing. So when I was playing that, I was playing my D9 with the F sharp in the bass, right? So if I take my index finger off and put it down now on the 8th fret 1st string, I leave these other 3 fingers where they are. There's that D9 shape that we talk about all the time. So if I go up 2 frets, there's a D6, there's a D9, and here's my D chord using the E shape, just to connect it all to something, right? And what's cool about that is you can walk back and forth between the 6 and the 9 chord. like that. You can slide. So anytime there's a blues, if you're on a chord like this D, it's a fun little way to sort of fill the space using a 6 and a 9 chord. And you can do chromatic as well. So when I came up to it, I went, okay, so after I played the 6 and the 9, then I did this. Now what is that? It's the same little shape there. I go back to my 6 chord. I go up a half step. You can do that with these chords. They're slidable, right? You can always take whatever chord you're on and go up a fret or go below it a fret just to get that kind of bluesy vibe. I went up one, went back to the 6, back to the 9, and then into this area. Now I'm barring the first 3 strings on the 7th fret, and that is now a D6 chord. Again, we're playing it in just a different spot. Wait, so there's my D chord using the E shape. Just going through my thoughts here. D chord using the E shape, D6. Go down 2 frets to get the D9. Here's my D chord using the A shape, D6. Go down 2 frets to get the D9. Oh, I hope that a light bulb went off for some of you, where you go, okay, got my 6 and 9, got my 6 and 9 right here. But when I came down to this position, instead of me going to the 6 to the 9, I went, little embellishment. I could have done the whole chord, but I think I just went like this. And then back to the A, because that's where the song switches back to the A. And so I might as well just do it right there. Just play that little triad, top part of your A chord using the E shape. I hope a light bulb's going off though when you're getting this 6 and the 9 chord. Oh, that was the other thing, is I played it with a tremolo there, just tried to play the top 3 strings. That's a little difficult to do. I play mandolin, so that comes a little easier. You don't have to do that, but that's just another idea, right? Another rhythm and chord idea. So now the song is back to the A chord, and I went. Now what is this? I got this from Duke Robillard. This is a cool lick here, or a cool voicing, I guess. This is an A6. It's another way of playing a 6 chord. You can dissect those notes and get at it, but what I like to do is I just connect it to my A chord using the E shape, where I've got these 2 fingers, which is on the 7th fret. I'm now going to put my index finger on the 7th fret, 2nd string, and then I'm going to come up to the 9th fret and play strings 1 and 3. And that's just a really kind of unconventional, non-conventional way of playing a 6 chord. I just walked it up a half step, and then back to it, and then back to my A chord down here using that little triad, the top part of that E shape. And then a classic kind of blues minor pentatonic lick. And that's between the 5th fret and the 7th fret on the 2nd string. Actually, this note would be in your major pentatonic. Another blend of the major and minor. So we start on that 7th fret, 2nd string, do a half bend. Back to that 7th fret without the bend, and then, so that's 5th fret, 7th fret, 3rd string, back to the 5th fret, 2nd string, and then we come down to the 5th fret, 3rd string right underneath it. I love that lick. And now the song goes to the E chord, which is our 5 chord. And I play this. Now what is that? Well, I started by barring the first 3 strings here on the 7th fret, played the 3rd string, the 1st string, and then played the whole chord. And then I did this little dance really between the 9th fret and the 7th fret on the 1st string, 2nd string, and 3rd string like this. So it's just walking down between the 9th fret and the 7th fret. Very easy to see, it's very symmetrical. Now what is that, and why does that represent our E chord? Well, think of your E chord where we're at here. So this would be your E chord using the A shape. And if I look at the top 3 strings of that chord and play and bar, that's an E6. Go down 2 frets, that's an E9. Oh, right, we just talked about that. Remember, we talked about it for a D just a few minutes ago. So if we slide everything up 2 frets, that's an E chord now using the A shape. That means that's an E6 and that's an E9. And I know somebody will get confused because they'll look at that and they'll go, wait a minute, when you played that before, you called that a D6. Well, it is a D6 if the bass is playing a D, but if the bass is playing an E, it's an E9. It depends. It depends on what it's being played on top of. So the chord underneath it is what determines it. So when I go like this, that's an E6, and when I go like this, that's an E9. So when I play that lick, that's just going between kind of like the 6 and 9 chord. That's how I think of it anyway. All right, so these next 2 chords are a big injection of jazz into your blues. It's definitely not like a Delta blues sound at all. It's got a classic kind of I love the sound of that. And so this is being played over the D chord, which is your 4 chord, and it's creating a tension, a little more tension, and then it resolves back to the 1 chord. So this first thing, to play that, I've got my ring finger on the 12th fret 4th string, my middle finger on the 11th fret 3rd string, and then I'm going to bar the first 2 strings on the 9th fret. That's a kind of a weird sound. Now what that is, I had to kind of look this up. I've heard this done before and I've done it, but I didn't really know what it was. So it's like a D major 7 chord. Think of it that way, but with a flat 5. So that's that sound. It's just kind of, that's what jazzes it up when you flat the 5. Now, after that, I'm just gonna take my middle finger, I'm gonna leave everything else, but take my middle finger, move it down 1. And that creates kind of a diminished sound. And then I put my pinky on the 12th fret 1st string as a, a little embellishment off that chord. And then I came down back to the 1 chord, which is my A, and I played strings 1 and 2 for that, which is inside of my E shape there, the A chord using the E shape. So if you like the sound of that, and you want to use that in the blues going forward, this is where you would do it. It happens at this point in the song. So in a blues, you go, at some point you go to the 5 chord, right? And then you go back to the 4 chord, and then back to the 1 chord. So when you go back to that 4 chord, that's where you do these 2 chords. So whatever your 4 chord is, in this case it's a D, so I'm playing this D major 7 flat 5, and then that diminished D thing, I don't even know what it is technically, but that's the sound I'm hearing. And then back to your 1. And I got that idea from Duke Robillard, so if you want to know where that came from, he's the guy. I couldn't tell you the song, but it's something I've heard him do. So after that, the song goes back to the A chord, and I played, and that's back to the 5 chord. So this little lick, I like this. It's just kind of fun. So with my ring finger on the 7th fret, I'm going to play the 4th string, 2nd string, and then we're going to go to the 5th fret 2nd string. So, and then back to that 7th fret 4th string. So it creates a little cycle there. And then watch this. We're going to play strings 2 and 3 on the 7th fret, and then we're going to slide in to my A chord. You know, just strings 2 and 3 out of that A chord using the E shape. So it goes like this. And then the last thing, I'm going to walk it down 5th fret, 4th fret on the 4th string, down to the 7th fret 5th string, which is my E note. That's where the 5 chord is. And then I play the 5 chord with that. It's an E7 sharp 9, the Hendrix chord, right? So it's just like your same like D7 shape, you know, from first position. If you play it here, you're playing an E7, but then you sharp the 9 here, which is on the 8th fret 2nd string. So I played it like this. And then that gets me back, and that's where you can loop in the jam track. So I'm playing that. And then there's the half step up, and then we go into the 1, which is my A9 over C sharp. I just love the sound of that. And then we're back. And you know, that's the idea. Now, I hope that you pick something up from that, and you know, even if it's just one idea, you don't have to learn it all. If some of it's too confusing or too difficult to play with your fingers, just try and walk away with 1 or 2 ideas, and then take a jam track. Actually, take the jam track from this and work those ideas over and over again. And then take another jam track in a different key, different tempo, and see if you can take these ideas and start using them. That's how you get stuff sort of in your thought process and into your mental Rolodex, so that when it's time for you to play a lead, that's where they come from. It's just practicing. All right, so if you've enjoyed this lesson, leave a comment and let me know. I always appreciate that. Or if you've got questions about anything, or maybe something isn't clear, you can leave a question there too. I'll try and respond to it. Okay, I'll see you next week for something new.